Everybody, this is Perch. Here's an interesting mail. So this is one where, well, I'm just going to read it to you, but the writer has asked to remain anonymous. But you know who you know this person. I'll just put it there. I'll just put it there. Maybe not who you expect. Anyway, let me read this mail to you, and then let's talk about it. So I think this sums up, by the way, what's funny is that this mail succinctly puts into words conversations I've had with quite a lot of people. And it's one of the reasons why I think that there's a misnomer by a lot of people, a lot of customers, a lot of people on YouTube that like everybody in comics kind of speaks with the same voice and they all feel this certain way. And to the contrary, a lot of conversations are had that are just like this. So something to consider. But anyway, let's read this message. It says, "Hey Perch, I've been a professional comic creator for a few years now. I love the medium, I love working with the characters, and I love the culture and the fan base. But I'm really disappointed with how the industry has unraveled during COVID. And I'm mainly talking about the big two here, as they are the pillars. With lockdown orders and supply chain issues, it was the perfect time for the industry to address its lack of a digital strategy. But not only have they failed to develop one, they failed to even acknowledge that a digital strategy is needed. They should have used this time to fix things that weren't working while developing big, coherent plans for when the pandemic finally ended. But instead, they limped out of the gate with a strategy of higher prices, less quality, more confusion, and an overwhelming amount of events and variants. What's worse, I'm not sure the industry seems to understand that opportunities were wasted. They seem happy to sit back and watch manga and YA outperform them in every way, building successful digital platforms, grabbing new readers that Marvel and DC would kill for. Then they gleefully sit back and claim victory by pointing to the overall market growth, 90% of which has nothing to do with them." That's this by the way, this next quote is a dead on and painful. That's like the South trying to claim victory in the American Civil War despite the fact that it lost. It's like them saying, sure, we lost most of the battles, but war has been very successful for the war industry, which we're a part of. So my question is, who is it fair to blame? Blaming editors, low-level employees, and creators obsessed with the culture war nonsense doesn't really address the problem. The root of the issue is with higher-level management at the big two, the people who answer directly to Discovery and Disney. Who are these people? And who are the Discovery Disney people whose lack of oversight has allowed them to drop the ball these past few years? I imagine that there are less than 10 names responsible for what's happened. Can you list these people and summarize what each did wrong and why? I'm not looking to start a witch hunt. I just want to understand what parts are broken and why. Okay. Damn. First off, the observation is accurate. It was an opportunity wasted. I think that's the best and only way to kind of look at it. Not that you call the pandemic a good thing or anything like that, but it was a moment in time in which, smart, strong businesses should have performed differently. And several did. In fact, one of the things that doesn't get talked about, I think, nearly enough, but is absolutely true, is as long as we're talking about Jump and the various, basically success of Webtoon and in particular manga on digital, it was largely because they used the pandemic, or they used that moment during the pandemic, to make the digital experience as good as humanly possible, went in cheap with a grow market strategy, had a appropriate and believable, user acquisition approach, and they nailed it. They got it. And now we're going to watch for 10 to 15 years the benefits of that, because that's how big market acquisition strategies work. You go and you basically find people and you get them locked into your platform, and then as you see with many subscription services, people are reluctant to leave. Once they bought into something, the hardest part is getting them. Once you've got them, you have to really almost piss them off to a high extent in order to get them to churn off. And whether it was intentional or not, the manga digital strategy made a very cheap entry price which is going to benefit them a hell of a lot, very, very well during a economic downturn where the bill for their digital, subscription hides. In the midst of all the other things you're paying for, you're not going to notice that one. It's going to be a big deal. So who are the people responsible, and why? Well, I mean, to me, at the Marvel side, you have kind of the trio. You have Buckley, and you have Gabriel, and you have Quesada. Now Quesada's now gone. What where they failed, I think, is, and in my mind, if you were to ask me, which of the three did the worst job, I think you have Quesada, who absolutely fell apart as a leader, as somebody who was meant to rally the troops. A strong leader, particularly in crisis, is somebody who can get a number of people on the table, a number of people rallied around an initiative, doesn't have the answers himself or herself, but knows how to get people engaged and get things working. And this is where Quesada, I think, did a very poor job of rallying the troops, of helping to get people to understand that the moment is now and that work needed to be done, that things needed to be shifted. Instead, the leadership approach was very much along the lines of, well, hope everybody's doing okay, hang in there. Almost what they've called during the pandemic, cheerful boss, who will, ask about how's your mental health doing during this hard time, which is important. You should do that too. But you also have to be strategic about how do you marshal, the troops to make sure that this downturn doesn't result in the destruction of your company. I think from a leader, he dropped the ball. I think similarly, Buckley also dropped the ball in terms of engaging with the parent company. And this is where directly, hearing from people at Disney, Buckley should have gotten more involved with the parent and figure out ways to kind of attach it, figure out how to align with Feige's initiatives, figure out a way to, if the movies can't go into the movie theater, what opportunities are there? There's a lot of just general, company management stuff that Buckley absolutely, again, was asleep at the wheel on. The person that I think screwed up the most of that trio, though, is Gabriel. I think Gabriel is in charge of distribution, is in charge of figuring out ways to, basically, meet what competitors are doing and survive. And he completely ignored his job. I think all three of those guys, one's gone now. The other two need to go. They've got it. I think at the leadership level, these are three people who neglected the business. And again, with Gabriel, it's the most offensive to me because it's a guy who, so it's not just that you didn't have vision to do something new and something, inventive. It's that you didn't do that and you completely ignored it when others did those things. Like, you didn't even have to be first mover. And this is the benefit that Marvel and DC have as giant companies. You don't have to be the first one out the gate getting it right. You can hang back, let other people do that, and then sweep in a couple months later, copy it, and take all the share, which is what big companies do, which is what Disney is classic at doing, what AT&T as well. Those two companies are legendary for stealing other people's good ideas and running with them. And the fact that you had people who figured it out during the pandemic, who actually did a good job and figured it out, and then this is the result. Fuck, man, I'm sorry. That's double bad. I don't know the best way to put it. Like, you not only figured it out from yourself, you completely ignored people who did figure it out. So yeah, awful. You should not have your job. Full stop. I mean, that's just, it's obscene to me that this went on. I can't begin to go into like how screwed up this all was. Over on the DC side, kind of a similar story, but DC, I mean, DC is weirdly like better and worse for me. So DC Comics, I think you have the exact same comments about Jim Lee that you had about Quesada. As the figurehead and as a leader, You had a responsibility to engage with your company and try and make a difference, and you didn't. You instead just kind of, increasingly found yourself like out of the loop. Daniel Cherry, who no longer works for the company, was hired in specifically to open up these new doors, and did nothing and didn't do it. Got just basically never really showed up to do the job he was hired to do, and it was a failure. And the part that frustrates me about a guy like Cherry is he actually, despite lots of people speculating, Cherry did have the resume and background to do it. He had the knowledge, he had the insights, it wasn't just a guy who took credit for other people's work. He actually did have the partnerships and some of the backgrounds of doing those deals. I know this firsthand. And he got in there and basically decided, this place is too screwed up. It's too hard. I'm going to wait it out and go get a job somewhere else, which he did. And look, I am sympathetic to people who take a job and it turns out the job is not what they thought it was, and that it's hard and people are stupid and it's like you're in a bunch of politics. That does happen all the time. Absolutely, it does. This is where maybe I'm different from most of you, or I don't know, different from others, is that's nice. It's shitty that the job is harder than you thought. You're being paid a high six-figure salary. Figure it the fuck out. I don't have sympathy for people, high-paid executives, when a lot of people are out there swimming around with $25,000, $35,000, $45,000 checks and no long-term security at all in comics. And you're sitting here and you want to talk about how difficult your job is. Screw you. Figure it out. I mean, just you have to figure it out. I don't think you get a pass just because the company turned out to be more jacked than you thought it was. So I think Cherry is, and Marie Javins as well. I'm sorry, like it's another one. This is a problem with the DC side of things. I mean, at Marvel, you had people showing up to work and just too arrogant or stupid to actually make the changes that they were supposed to make. On the DC side, like you had people who were literally asleep at the wheel, and seemed to be content with that, and that's ridiculous. So I think that, and a handful of others. I mean, their marketing director was a just piece of work. I mean, just so many. I think now the burden of responsibility, in my mind, it always was with Disney. So I think Feige, at the end of the day, now it's his job to right that ship. If he's unable to do that, then that's on him. I think now in the next 6 months to 12 months, Quesada's gone. What's the leadership vacuum going to look like? Who's going to come in and help do things? Like what is your plan? Feige, it's yours to fix or screw up. And by the way, I don't buy that bullshit of like, well, the comics is too small, so will he really care? It's too small. Why should he care? Because it's small. Because you were given the job. That's why. Don't care if it's small. If it's too small to care about, then kill off Marvel. License everything out. On the Discovery side, we have yet to really understand who the leadership's going to be over there. But the burden is on them now. Clean up your house. The people who you had doing the job were failures. Get somebody new in. It's when DC first moved away from Diamond. I heard from a couple creators, a couple writers who were talking about how encouraged and enthusiastic they were that DC was actually going to take a leadership position and do something. And with Didio out, they're going to get away from Diamond. They're going to control their own destiny. It's going to be good for retailers. I know one of you listening right now is a writer who was very, very encouraged by that. And within 12 months, that writer was gone, had left and gone off to do other things. So, I guess I share that writer's disappointment that, it was a moment. I mean, the writers were recognizing, lots of people were recognizing there was a moment to do something great, and they failed. Anyway, thank you very much for the mail. Keep on creating your work. Always enjoy reading your stuff. That's my direct answer. There you go. Thanks for listening.